The PhD programs in the US are very competitive, and only the best of the best get into those programs. And keep in mind that most PhD programs in the US are funded by the university, which means most students do not have to pay an out-of-pocket expense for a PhD programs. So it is natural for you to have a very competitive application, which means that you need to make sure that your application is accurate, which means you need to make sure that you have completed your application fully and you have conveyed all the facts in your application. The other thing, of course, if you're coming from a foreign country, is that you have to have English proficiency, which is basically your IELTS or TOEFL, or if you're coming from a English-speaking country or an English-speaking school, you need to make sure that you convey that in your application. That could help you waive your IELTS or TOEFL in some instances, not in all. The other big piece of a PhD application, of course, is the GRE score, depending on the program that you're going into. The higher your GRE score, the more competitive your application is, and the better chances you have of getting into a very competitive school. And then, of course, your letters of recommendation, for example, are a very key piece that have a very important effect on the person reading your application. So make sure your letters of recommendation are done professionally. Make sure that they convey who you are as a student and your ability to complete and persevere through a competitive PhD progress. The other thing is, of course, very important, is your essay. Again, people applying to doctoral programs in the doctoral programs in the US may have similar credentials, may have the similar grades, may have similar GRE scores, may even have very strong recommendations. But what it may at the end boil down to is your essay and how well it's written and how much it conveys who you are as a student, and if you can persevere through the 5 or 7 years that you're going to be spending as a PhD student. And last but not least is your research interest. That needs to be clearly conveyed, and it is very important that as a PhD student you know what your PhD interest is, and you need to also know how that PhD interest aligns with the university or the professors at the university. You may have the best credentials, but if your research interests do not align with the university, they may not be able to take you on. So that is also a very key piece of having a successful PhD application.